Oh, okay. All right. All right.
You know what I like to do? I like to go live
I'll
without
use funny voices.
telling you guys. It's
Evil.
funny to
You
me.
just go live.
Evil, yeah, we're already live.
Oh,
That
that's funny.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be funny?
yeah, right. So, well, welcome back
Rather
to
have you saying kill.
kill.
Forever.
Welcome back to the Lovecraft eZine podcast. The little podcast that could. We're going to talk about NecronomiCON. We are honored today to have one of the guests of honor from NecronomiCON, Nadia Bulkin. Hey.
Yay!
I
Look, the little mutant duck says he's happy.
Oh, nice duck.
Yeah, that was from Sarah Langdon. It's in in Better World. It's like a toothy duck thing, and
Oh, no.
and German Godzilla is really good friends with the toothy duck. It's strange, but it's kind of beautiful.
Just got a message from Matt. Send me a link. Well, I already did, Mr. AOL, but I'll send you another one.
Matt's become a troublemaker, hasn't he?
Well, he's kind of a Luddite.
He provides free medical advice, so that's great.
That's true.
On.
That's true. So, Kim Smeltzer is watching live. Says, "What a fine, full-blooded group of delightful weirdos." Our new slogan. That's our new slogan.
A slogo.
A slogo is a mixture of a slogan and a logo. So, yeah, slogo is correct. All right, let's have everybody introduce themselves.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, have some. Let's start with Nadia. Yeah. Who are you? Who are you?
Nadia Bulkin, a horror writer. She said destroy. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Live in DC.
A Bram Stoker award-winning essayist, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's true. I got my little house recently, and it was really, really, really cute.
Nice.
Those are cool looking awards. Yeah.
They're so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Langan. I didn't do it, but I probably did.
And Bill Holloway is with us. I spent a lot of time with Bill at NecronomiCON as well, and then we were both in the airport waiting for late planes for a very long time. So
and hey. I was worried about you after I departed Charlotte, and I'm sorry for what happened.
I got home eventually. Yeah. We introduce yourself, especially since you're not usually here. Maybe your latest book, real quick.
Oh yes. I am William, but you can call me Bill. My latest thing I have out right now is a anthology with some very cool writers called Black Seeds of Infinity. It's the Relia Cycle book number 2, and the other folks involved were Mr. Brett J. Talley, Gemma Files, and Curtis M. Lawson.
Gemma Files and Curtis, nice.
Yeah.
Now Matt's asking me if I have the correct email for him. Oh my God. Yes, I have the correct email. I have the correct AOL address, Matt. Correct AOL
there
address.
He is.
Oh, there he is. See, AOL. You just had to say AOL 3 times and summon him.
That's right.
Hi, Matt.
You can go ahead and start now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Why don't, since you're here now, by the way, nice t-shirt. That's a great t-shirt.
Okay. So first thing is there is a prize. There's a guy that I know. I've known him forever. He reads more mythos than I do, but he doesn't collect it. So when he's done with whatever he picks up, he sends it to me to give away. And that's how I have this copy of Strange Eons number 22. Really nice magazine. It even comes with a little arty print thing. So if you want to win this or try to win it, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com and put SA22 in the subject heading. We'll draw a winner in about 6 or 8 weeks.
This is against everything that we stand for on this podcast, to be giving
I
away
thought we
Kelly
just,
Young products.
I thought we stood for whoever gave us money, we'd take it.
That's true, but he hasn't given me any money.
Isn't his friendship worth more than gold?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yes, it just started, Chaz. Bridget.
Hello, I'm Bridget, composer, artist, and I have a new computer and a new webcam, so I'm trying to figure out how to position it. So apologize for as it's falling over for people watching right now. I'm going to move my desk, so I don't want to set it somewhere permanent. I'm just trying to figure it out for today, so I apologize.
You're good. You're good. Let's see, Mark.
All right. Stephen Mark Rainey, go by Mark. And I am a horrific editor and even more horrific writer. Very horrific.
Yeah, you. What's your latest book? And you're going to be somewhere in like a week to sign books.
Yeah. Next weekend, well, there's of all things, it's a brewery book signing, and I swear my best book signings tend to be at places where they serve alcohol. So
I can see that, why that
yeah,
would be.
My most recent printed book is actually an older one. It's The Gods of Moab, a very Lovecraftian tale that I've recently had out in paperback, and I've got a newer, brand new novel coming out in probably 2 to 3 months from Crossroad Press, which is The House at Blacktooth Pond.
Yeah,
and it'll scare the pants off of you. I cannot be.
The House at Blacktooth Pond. Yep.
Yes. Yes.
I'm working on a blurb for that.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, if you enjoy the podcast, and I assume you do, if you're still here after the first 3 minutes, Nadia's like, yep. Check out the panelists' books and products. Like I've got hyperlinks on the website, like Bridget's site and John at Amazon, or might be his website, but yeah, that's a nice way to pay these people back for hanging out with me every Sunday.
Also, what makes you assume that there's some poor person is not in some kind of saw situation where they're like strapped to some kind of diabolical torture device, and it's like either cut off your hand to get out of this or watch the Lovecraft eZine?
That's a valid point.
Yeah, even now they're sawing at their hand with the dull, butter knife or something.
Yeah, I would assume they would go with losing the hand. Who am I missing? Alan.
Yeah, sure. Alan Hughes. I'm an artist, teacher, and eZine flunky.
Yeah, you've been really doing a lot for the eZine. One of those things is created a extremely nice work of art, which depicts Joe Pulver welcoming Rick Lay to Carcosa. And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening later on Spotify or Apple or whatnot, I have a link to my TeePublic store, and you'll see that you can get it on T-shirt, a mug. I ordered a mug yesterday because it just went up yesterday, and 50% of those proceeds will go to the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation. For those who don't know, our dear friend Rick Lay passed away several months ago, and he had Parkinson's, and so there's that. And if you enjoy and want to keep the eZine going, please consider joining the Patreon. The very latest Patreon only podcast that I put up was, in fact, one of my deep background interviews in that deep background series with John Langan, and it was
that guy owes me money.
Yeah, it was great. It was 2.5 hours, and we're actually
and you felt every minute. I mean, I'd say you felt every second of that. Let's face it.
Every time I woke up, you were saying something interesting. So
that was like 2 interesting things I said. Okay, yeah.
And we're actually going to go do a part 2 soon. We're putting our schedules together, and
God help you all.
hopefully Kristen and Emma will put their schedules together too. They'll join us again. So
They wouldn't stop screaming at the end. That was terrible. They were like, make it stop, make it stop. Yeah.
so things like that you get only with the podcast or with the Patreon. So that starts at just $5 a month. Hell of a deal. Yep. Now that I'm done with my used car salesman routine, so Necronomicon was incredible. It was 2 weeks ago this weekend, and I thought we could just do an episode for an hour or however long we go on here about the highlights of Necronomicon and everyone's favorite moments or some of the things they did. One of the things that inspired me to do this was I was, as I said, in the airport with Bill Holloway for a long time, and he was talking about that was your first time, right, Bill? Yeah, you're muted, buddy.
Yes, it was not just my first time there. It's my first real convention of first writing convention, and it was just a really 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 amazing experience. It was like discovering that for the whole time that you're a writer, you're kind of not in the fishbowl. You've
Yeah.
been looking from the outside of the fishbowl, and all of a sudden you're in the fishbowl. So as bad of an analogy as that goes, that's kind of what it was. And
Fishbowl experience.
fishbowl experience. I got to be in the fishbowl, and when I didn't even know there was a fishbowl, like in that sense. So it was. I will never miss it again. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
one of the things you said to me in the airport was you were talking about art for art's sake with the what was the puppet show that you saw,
Yeah.
and how pure and wonderful that is. I mean, we all like money, right? We'd all like to get paid for what we do, but
Yeah.
and the other thing is Mark Rainey said to me it was his first time as well, and he's like, Mike, I'm sold on this. I'm coming every time. So I just thought we could
That's in
all,
spite of you, Mike.
yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah. I'm, I'm taking you off of the panelists from now on. So I don't know who wants to start and maybe just, talk about some of your favorite moments, and we can go back and forth. We don't have to focus on one person at a time, but,
I'll just say one thing.
yes.
When I first went in 2013, I did a walking tour, and the guide, who shall remain nameless, didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He was unprepared. He didn't know where the locations were, and I ended up knowing more than he did. You can ask Cody Goodfellow about it because he was on this. Well, this time I specifically signed up to go with Donovan Laux, who not only does he know all of Lovecraftian geography, he's a Providence boy. He knows all the history about Stephen Hopkins and where the downtown was and why they closed off the bridge. And it was a pleasure. Just if you get a chance, walking around the streets of Providence, and I don't mean just going to Lovecraft sites, but just seeing the architecture and the old colonial buildings and where the markets were. That was really, really nice.
Actually, that's one of the things that Niels, the organizer, always says. Every Necronomicon, I've noticed that he wants it. I'm going to badly paraphrase what he says, but not just a weird horror convention, whatever, cosmic horror, Lovecraftian, whatever you want to call it, but also he wants everyone to get a taste of Providence. So, which is what you're talking about, Matt. So yeah, maybe we should just start with Bill. Talk about that puppet show and who was there and why you liked it and whatever else you want to talk about.
So I had no idea that things like that happened. I ended up in this hotel room. Matt Bartlett was there, and I was there with Curtis Lawson, and everyone was just like, this is totally normal. What's about to happen?
Can I ask, was this Adam Bolivar?
Exactly, that guy.
Guy's brilliant with marionettes.
He is. And it was like some kind of weird occult allegory puppet show. And, you know, and like Mike was saying, you know, it's not the sort of thing that can be monetized. It's art for art's sake. And, you know, it just to me, you know, it kind of, it blew my mind, you know, because I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit jaded or something. I just kind of saw this purity in that moment, and it was just absolutely, it was beautiful as far as I was concerned. Now everybody else knew what to expect out of the whole thing, so I don't know if it had the like kind of jarring mental impact that it had on me, but it really blew my mind, like on several levels, just the fact that it was happening in the first place. And you know, the fact that people do this art, it at the expense of sounding as hokey as possible, it kind of renewed my faith in mankind in its own way.
You know, Adam Bolivar has been doing this at conventions for a while yet. I've never been lucky enough to see one of his performances, but I believe he goes to the Portland H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. So if anyone's going to go, he might put on a show there. I think you just have to take your chances to see him. He's a writer and a poet, but this is like his avocation.
You know, before I forget, before we go on, I'd like to say thanks so much to Niels Hobbs for organizing this every 2 years, and all of the people who work with him that, you know, I don't know their names, but you know, this is a labor of love for Niels, and it's an amazing convention. And if you get a chance to go in 2026, you really should. And Chaz made the joke about gloating. This is the show to gloat to people who couldn't make it. Now, we just want to whet your appetite for 2026, you know, because you really should go. I mean, it's, you know, what I saw in Bill is he just sort of was re-energized, if that makes sense, by the whole convention. So yeah, Nadia, you were one of the guests of honor.
Right.
Yeah,
It was really
yeah. So talk about that a little bit, and maybe some of your favorite moments.
Yeah. So I mean, being guest of honor was obviously a huge honor. I was really surprised to be selected. But it meant that I got to stay in a nice suite, which was really nice.
Penthouse.
But honestly, I think my favorite moment was the last panel that I was on, which was the Kafka panel, with a bunch of other folks, Cisco, Alan, I think Alan, I don't remember his name, David Bailey. But yeah, it was just like a lot of fun, and people were super like into it. And I think the panelists were also like, we kind of leaned into like, how many jokes can we make about Kafka in, you know, this short time frame. But I think we all kind of had a different perspective. And what the moderator told us afterwards was like, oh, you guys made Kafka seem witty and contemporary. Which was kind of funny. Not that that was like necessarily the intent, but I would say it was like the most kind of exciting feeling of like crowd energy and panel energy going back and forth that
Yeah.
I have been on. So that was super cool. Probably my best panel experience so far, and NecronomiCON as a whole is my favorite con. So yeah, I have only positive things to say about it. Like I feel like I don't miss it if I can, you know. So
My only negative was that I saw you just one time on Friday night with Paul and with John, and I was like, you know,
oh, we were like ships passing in the night.
I know. So we gave each other a hug, and then I was like, oh, I'll see her tomorrow and everything, and then yeah, that was it.
I honestly I meant to come visit your panel, the Lovecraft eZine panel.
Yeah.
But then Corey Fahrenkopf arrived and was lost, and I had to like take care of him, and it was all this whole drama, you know. So
That was nice of you. I thought you were going to say I meant to watch the eZine panel, but I really didn't want to, so I didn't. Which
no,
is
I'll
what
just
happened with John. So yeah, I saw you and Paul, and I was like, "Where's John?" And Paul's like, "Well, I think he snuck down to the Rayner's bathroom to use the bathroom, even though we're not eating here." And so
I did nothing of the kind. I did nothing of the kind. Do not besmirch my good name
I
by
said,
implying that I would surreptitiously use a bathroom to whose facilities I was not entitled.
I sent John a text
How dare
right
you,
away.
sir?
I said, "I've reported your illegal bathroom activity to the police."
Well, the funnier thing was that Bartlett went down and used the bathroom and sent me a picture of the bathroom, and I was like, "This is getting weird."
He did
You know,
really.
Providence has trees, guys. You know,
That's I feel like that, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's a beginning to a Bartlett story or something like that. You know, you get the picture of the bathroom, and the next thing you know, there's a leech.
What I like to do is just everyone feel free to speak up anytime about your memories, whatever you want to say about Necronomicon, and instead of doing one person at a time, which might feel more like a lecture or something, let's just go back and forth. Um, Bridget, this was your second Necronomicon, right? And you're muted too.
I know it took me a second.
Oh, okay.
Holy
Sorry.
crap! Is that all right?
God damn it.
You're like, yell at me. Speak now. Why can't you speak fast enough? Yeah, it was my second time. Actually, like Matt said, I went and did the walking tour last year or last time. I went and did the Eldritch Ball, went to like all the stuff and things, and then this time I pretty much just at the eZine table for most of it and wandered around and um but I was just chatting here on the YouTube chat with Kim, and so thinking about like what my favorite part was is just seeing people that and even a lot of times through the eZine, we see each other on Zoom, but I see someone in person, I'm like, and then they're like, who are you? Oh, yeah, you're you. And then we're all like super socially like horror, weird, awkward people. And it's like, how do I talk to this person now that they're in front of me? But then we realize that it's a safe space because we're all weird horror weirdos. And that is what I thought was really cool. Just feeling that sense of you're with your tribe and it's okay to be a little awkward and just chat with people. And yeah, it was really nice. That was my favorite part.
That's awesome, and I agree. The whole mood of the convention, it's that way on purpose from Neil's on down. Just very relaxed, very safe environment. Mark, at Necronomic this 2 weeks ago was the first time we met, you know, air quote in person, but with as much time as we spend online face to face, it didn't feel like that. And I think we talked about that a bit.
yeah, very much. And feel free to fling something virtual at me because I had so many favorite moments at this con. Over the last 40 years, I can't even begin to count how many cons I've been to, but there's been this long gap in recent years where I haven't been able to make many cons. And so this one was particularly meaningful to me because so many people that I've known virtually, whether it goes back to correspondence from the 80s, like Jeffrey Thomas, and you guys, it felt like a homecoming in a weird way. Everybody in this group that I got together with, it was like Bridget said, it was like kind of like I found a tribe. I've been to a lot of cons where I knew people and I liked a lot of people, but this one felt like home. And as far as particular favorite moments, I was on the Willem Pugmire panel. You know, Willem and I went back literally as far as 1970, when we both wrote for a Japanese monster fanzine. But in the time that I knew him in the 80s and 90s with Death Realm, where I published his work, we corresponded an awful lot. I never met him in person, but on this panel with Jeff Thomas and Tom Broadbent and Nicole Cushing, it meant so much to be able to reflect not just on Willem as a person, but on so many of the premises that brought us all together. I loved that. It was poignant. I don't think I've ever been on a panel before where tears came to my eyes. I was at the Joe Pulver panel, which I know you have specific thoughts on, but I knew Joe very well. So these were aspects of the con that I've never experienced any other place, because they focused on these souls, and I loved that. So all of you guys that I met almost all of you in person for the very first time when I went to the opening ceremonies. The first people I run into are Matt and Alan, and I thought, oh shit, I'd better run, but they were okay. And I met John for the first time. You know, all you guys, it felt like home.
Plus,
and that's why from now on, this is going to be my con, you know, from now on.
And one of the first things you told me is that you're like, hey, something like, I'm famous. Somebody recognize me.
Well, I'm famous, but nobody knows it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, someone walked up to you near
yeah,
the elevator or something.
I mean, it was my first second walking in the door. I don't even remember who the young fellow was, but he was like, Mr. Rainey. And I'm not used to that, because when somebody says Mr. Rainey, they usually want money. But that wasn't it. He knew me from this podcast, and I thought, well, I guess these, you know, y'all are okay.
Mr. Rainey, some of us do want money.
Yeah, I know you do.
Who wants to talk next? John?
I can make one more mention, one thing.
Yeah, please.
This was, I think the place where I thought the con felt the absolute most energetic was the first day when they first opened the dealer room. And like so many attendees swarmed in.
Yeah.
And there were so many people you recognized sitting behind tables. Nick the Hack Gucker, the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, Gwen Callahan was there. I mean, it's just so much energy and happiness and excitement of people just pouring in to see what was for sale. And then I think what Bridget said, it's like, whenever I go in there, I just kind of go and sit for a while at the eZine table, just because it's so nice being around people. But also people, like Bridget said, people just stop by and maybe don't want to buy anything, cheapskates, but they just wanted to talk, you know, just talk and share their enthusiasm. So
yeah.
I thought that the dealer room, particularly that first few hours, was really amazing.
Part of that was because we had Laird's books on the table. And then once those were all sold out, people had to stare at us awkwardly.
I have to make a quick correction, if you don't mind. I think I said I met John. I've met John 2 or 3 times, but he messes up my brain.
I didn't want to be the one to say that. I thought that would be rude to be like, what about AuthorCon? Didn't we?
Yeah,
didn't we meet
AuthorCon
there?
and probably NecronomiCon, you know. Yes.
And I was just like, okay, all right. So I make that much of an impression.
But
Great.
John,
you've been taking lessons from Mike Davis. Yeah.
I am old and I forget things.
Listen, I hear you.
Yeah. So I apologize. I was caught up in the moment. But yeah, but that's probably I spent a little more time than just seeing you in passing, and I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no, me too. I agree with what everybody's saying. The funny thing about the Laird's book was it kind of gave me this flashback, if you will, like the first Necronomicon, where and I was trying to remember because Laird was the guest of one of the guests of honor there, and his publisher, I think it might have even been his collection, The Beautiful Thing that Awaits Us All, um, was just coming out, and his publisher got like a box or two of them to the convention, and all these people were just going nuts because it was like, oh my God, here's the new Laird Baron. And I was like, we've kind of come full circle, here again. It's like the new Laird Baron. Let me get my hands on one of those. And I know from having talked to Laird, recently, I know that he would really like to make it back one of these odd years. It's just a question of health, whether that permits. But um, yeah, man, I had so many great times with so many really just wonderful people, and it was a chance. I had dinner the night that what do you call it? Paul and Nadia and Simon Strands, all those guys went out to dinner. I had dinner with this guy I know named Ryan Whiteley, who runs a book club in a virtual book club in Florida. And he was like, oh, let's go have dinner. And it was just really nice to just get to hang out. I mean, I ate with Mike, which I offered up for the souls in purgatory, as my mother tells me to do. But
Heaven points.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I sprang a whole bunch that night. And but yeah, it was, Nadia and Paul and I went out to the Korean restaurant, and then Paul took us to this place that does homemade ice cream and combines it with breakfast cereal, which was surprisingly good. Not for my blood sugar, but it was awfully tasty. And yeah, it really felt like I had to miss the last one because my wife got COVID like 2 days before the convention. And so it really did feel like a welcome return to seeing a lot of people, honestly, that I didn't even like. I thought I would see more of Michael Sisko, and he or even Simon Stranz's. And I didn't. I sort of saw each of them briefly, and then they were off doing their own things. And so yeah, it was weird. Like I would have liked to have seen them more, but on the other hand, it's also kind of cool to think that they were off. Like there were all these groups of friends together, who were all kind of hanging out, and I think it was interesting too to me, just from a sort of like literary biography or historical perspective, to see those sorts of groups, like Matt Bartlett, and Rick Claypool and Elsie von Hessen. There's definitely like a kind of shared sensibility among those guys. John Paget probably fits in there too, and so it's interesting to see all of them kind of hanging out together, um and the Canadians that were there, I think, hung out together. I think Simon and David Nickel, and I'm not sure who else from Canada was there, but you get the idea, that you see all these different groups, and then people sort of moving around. So yeah, it was really about as pleasant a convention as I've been to. The only thing was the 8 a.m. panels, man. That killed me. I was just fortunately I was staying with Paul, and Paul was like, yeah, I'm not taking you at an 8 a.m. panel. You're on your own. So I was able to find a friend of Cisco's, Alan Rook, whom I also know, to put me up in his room so I could get up first thing in the morning and go to that insanely early panel.
Alan was kind enough to let me bunk with him, and he was telling me that every day at 5 you just wake up, something like that, without an
Yeah,
alarm.
I have a internal clock. It's just 28 years of teaching.
And I was like, well, I guess I'll get up on time then. We saw, speaking of Simon and Cisco, you and me and Paul and Simon Stranzis had lunch, and then who sits next to us after we're there about 15 minutes but Cisco and friends, you know. So
Which sounds like the world's worst talk show, Cisco and
Cisco and
friends, you
friends.
know, but
It's actually just him and like 3 puppets. You know?
exactly. Except you can't see who's making the puppets move, and you're just like, surely it's John Padgett, right? But oh no, it's not.
They're NPCs. I don't remember who it was, but yeah,
His Gabe Mesa and Alan Rook, who are
Alan
uh,
is the other one on the Kafka panel.
oh, okay, yeah. Alan runs or is a co manager or whatever of a Thomas Pynchon website, and I can't remember what the name of it is. And Gabe is just kind of like a man about town who reads a lot. He might have been on the translation panel, I think, because he reads quite extensively in Spanish literature and in the sort of Spanish literature of the weird in particular.
you know, the Niels is kind enough to give me, I know these are expensive, I don't know how much they are, a table in the dealer's room every Necronomicon. And you know what I agree with what Matt and I think Bridget was saying about how it's just nice to sit there and hang out, which you know that was my experience this time. You know, I just wanted to kind of take it easy and not overwhelm my body too much. Uh, had to go home a day early anyway, but I had a wonderful time. But you know, we had you know, I had Bridget's awesome artwork and other things there. Mark's books, Laird's book, Kelly Young's book. Um, who else? Can't even think right now. But it was just a nice time. Just nice to sit there.
Pete had something.
Pete always has a bunch of books. Yeah. So that was my experience too. I mostly sat there. I really didn't do any panels besides the easy one because this one I just wanted to do what I did. And to me, that's one of the best parts of it is just hanging out with everyone. And it does feel so safe and you're with your tribe. Yeah. Um,
And don't forget about our impromptu movie night.
yeah.
That was impromptu, wasn't it?
That
Yeah.
was super fun.
We went to see Alien Romulus. So that was a lot of fun. Bridget and her husband and Mark Rainey and Kevin Joyner and Alan,
And Dave.
Dave, right? Yeah, I knew I was missing somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I can't remember the last time I actually went to a movie with a bunch of friends. It was really fun. So, you know, just yeah, impromptu stuff like that that just makes it so fun. And Mark didn't like the movie, right?
You know, I didn't hate it or anything. I was not that excited about it. If I could, I'll
Yeah.
jump a little bit as far as regrets about the con, you know, because this thing is spread out. There's a lot of concurrent programming. If you don't have arrangements with anyone, there were several people I would have loved to have seen. Didn't see them, things that I would have liked to have done. I was really hoping to go to Waterfire, you know, to see the river burning up and things, you know, that I got with various people, and that didn't happen. So I kind of regret that. However, you had mentioned early on about getting to know Providence a bit. And some of y'all know that I do geocaching, and there were a shit ton of geocaches around Providence. So I went out on my own, you know, and just explored a slew of areas around Providence up toward Federal Hill, along the rivers, south. I forget which night it was. I think it was Friday at 11:30 in the evening. I went walking. There was a geocache about 2 miles down the road, down southward in some park. So I decided I'd had what, 2 or 3 martinis by this time. I'm going to go walking. So I decided to go after this geocache. So I got to see these beautiful old neighborhoods by night. And, and I found the cache, which was very, very gratifying. But I feel like by doing some stuff like that, totally on my own, it gave me a sense of location and of spirit, the spirit of this town, and it meant a lot. I really, really loved it.
This is why Mark's in such great shape. He does this geocaching all the time.
Oh yeah, every single day I was in Providence, I walked no less than 5 miles.
Wow.
It made me happy.
Alan, your second time, right?
Yeah, second time. I've been to a lot of conventions, and like Bridget said, the best thing was just hanging out, meeting people that we've seen. But I did, in all the conventions I've been to, I did something at NecronomiCON that I've never done before. I went to a gaming session. And I always had this idea that you spent all this money, traveled so far to a convention, why go play a game? You can do that back home. What you can't do is play a game with somebody who designed the game. And that's one of the real draws. I've got definitely something I'm going to do next NecronomiCON.
Bill, you want to talk any more about your experiences? I know you got more to relate.
Well, I think I'm echoing a little bit what was said earlier. In this, that next time I go, I am definitely going to have a game plan, because there was, there's this constant kind of whiplash going on because there's this person you're like amazed to meet over there, then there's this event over here, and then it's this massive overstimulation going on. So it's like going with like a plan, I think for me is going to be a big thing next time. Because it's like, I think I really only got to like 2 or 3 panels, and they were all so cool. And, kind of back to the pure art thing, I went to a Leonora Carrington panel, and I did not think such a thing could even exist. And it was just mind blowing. And just there's so much going on, like at all points of the compass, that definitely gonna have a plan next time. Another on a very personal level highlight for this was having dinner with Jeffrey Thomas.
Yeah. Who won the Robert Bloch Award, by the way.
Yeah. it's just just getting to sit down and talk about writing with a dude like him. It's like, if you cut him, letters would come out. He is a writer's writer, and just talking about writing with him was just it was like a weird, like almost pseudo religious revelation, there's nothing like that to put the wind back in your sails,
Yeah.
to be there with the real deal in the flesh, and that was just, it was just mind blowing for me, and yeah.
Oh, while we're on the subject of Jeff, he won the Robert Bloch. He was given the Robert Bloch Award this year, but they give out 2 of them, and I don't know who got the other one. Does anyone else know?
Was it Donovan Locks?
Oh, that sounds right. That sounds right. And it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's kind of like almost like a Nadia said to me one time. It's kind of like a lifetime achievement award, and you know, if Donovan won it, well deserved. But I know Jeffrey Thomas a lot better, and man, extremely well deserved. And does anyone know who? I totally blanked on this. I shouldn't have. But the Beast Awards, Matt, do you know anything about that? The Joe Pulver Awards? No? Or,
Those went to Leah von Hessen and
Hessen,
Paula
oh.
D. Ash.
Yeah.
oh, okay. Thank you.
I was trying to
Appreciate it.
confirm, but John got there faster.
Yeah, they're really cool looking as well. So, as are the Block Awards. Let's stay, but I want to stay on the panels. Bill brought up the amazing panels. Why don't we all stay on that for a minute? John, what panels were you on, and what panels did you attend?
I attended the Pulver panel,
Right.
and which was kind of sad. You know, we all laughed so much with Joe, you know, it's good to remember that, you know, that Joe could be very funny, and that being with Joe could be very funny, you know. I did the Moby Dick panel, which was packed actually. It was in one of those big Art Deco rooms, and it was just packed. And the English major in me, you know, my little heart grew 3 times bigger or whatever, you know. Um, and I was on a panel on Jean Ray, the Belgian writer,
Oh man, I'm
and
sorry I missed that.
well, it
Jeez.
was, you know, I think that was the 8 in the morning one.
Oh,
And it was actually, I mean, considering it was 8 in the morning, it was not that badly attended. Scott Nicolay, who's been doing a lot of the translation work and such on John Ray, was supposed to be there, and something happened and he wasn't, and I'm still not sure what it was. But we all complained about that. We were all like, well, if Scott Nicolay had bothered to show up, maybe we would know the answer to this, you know,
yeah. While you're on
perspicacious
that, let me
question.
just show everybody these translations of
Yeah.
Jean Ray that Scott Nickley has worked so hard on. Cruise of Shadows is just one example, and if you haven't read Jean Ray, pick them up. But anyway, sorry, John, go on.
Yeah, he's trying. No, he's trying. Scott has this desire to publish all of Jean Ray's work in English, all of his horror stuff in English,
Hmm.
and he's got about maybe, you know, halfway through it, and so the two takeaways, I guess, because I wouldn't by any stretch of the imagination claim myself as an expert, but that this is really fascinating, diverse writer of the weird, and look, we got to support this, you know. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I've been seeing, not to go off on a whatever
No,
rant or
go ahead.
climb up on my soapbox, but you know, Michael Kelly is asking for funding for his weird horror magazine, and he's almost there, but it's only, but still $10,000, and it's taken him, like he's still not at $10,000. And I think to myself, you know, these things, they don't stay around if we don't support them. I'm not saying you
Yes.
have to give $10,000, but I'm just saying that I feel like so often we're like, oh man, I can't believe that magazine went under, or I can't believe that, you know, they're not going to continue with that book series. And it's like, well, you know, we need to support it while it's going on. You know, I know,
Absolutely.
I know I tend to be a completist. I want to get something when it's done. You know, I want to be able to have all of it together. But you know, that's just my own sort of problem. So I think while you can, support these things, and this, you know, the Jean Ray books are a good example of this. Other panels, I had to moderate the editor panel, and this is Douglas Winter and Anne Vandermeer and Sherry Renee Thomas and Mark, whose last name I just can't remember, but who's like a big gaming editor. And I was just like, man, I have no idea what to do here. But they were great. I kind of gave them one, you know, a question, and then they would just each like tell like 15 minutes worth of anecdotes. And then it was like, okay, you know. So So yeah, that was a lot of fun. There was a panel on Margaret St. Clair, who is a writer from the mid 20th century. The 50s were 50s and 60s were really her strong point, and she's a kind of a horror slash science fiction writer. But her science fiction is, which is mostly what I read. I had her Wildside put out a collected edition of her story, or selected edition of her stories, and I have it, but it's like buried in the piles of books in my room. So I was like, I'll go online. But the only thing I could find was this, it's only like 99 cents or something, mega pack of stories by Margaret St. Clair. And I was like, well, mega pack, surely I want that. And I got it, and it was like 5 stories. And then like the Wildside Press does it, right? So 75% of the book is 5 stories, and the other 25% is ads for Wildside Press stuff. And I was like, Wildside Press, come on, you can do better. But she's her stuff is, it has that kind of readability, I guess, that you associate with a lot of the commercial writers from the mid part of the 20th century. And it's fascinating stuff, because she takes a lot of the traditions of science fiction up to that point, and just messes around with them in these very subtle ways that don't become apparent till you get to the end of the story. There's a story that is in essence John Carter of Mars, or Carson of Venus, or any of those Edgar Rice Burroughs stories about the white man who goes and he hangs out, in this case with all the green people, with this one green woman in particular, and he's going through the wilderness, and he's like, yeah. And the green woman takes him to her city, and it turns out she's a priestess or some kind of high official, and he's like, yeah, they love me because I'm a golden god, look at me. And so he imagines he's like he's John Carter, and he's found Dejah Thoris. And then at the end of the story, it becomes clear that that's not what they're interested in him for. And it's a kind of very, but he, to his credit, at the very end, maintains a sort of ironic perspective where he just laughs right before they lop his head off. So yeah, it's a neat it's a neat and interesting, she's a neat and interesting writer. I think the only other panel I was on was the materialism panel, which was basically like a PhD seminar smuggling itself into a Lovecraft convention. And there were a lot of really interesting points to be brought up. But you do have to remember, when you're on those kinds of panels, that you have an audience, some of whom will have PhDs in philosophy and will be able to talk to you about, materialism and all this kind of stuff. And some of whom they should have drifted in here. Their gaming session got done. They're like, hey, what's this all about? And then they're trapped by good manners. They have to stay in place, So I think that I really
Trapped by
enjoyed
good manners. I like it.
that's the story of my life, man. And I really I enjoyed the panel a lot as a participant in the panel, but there were 1 or 2 people afterwards who had some choice words for me about that panel.
Really? Dare I ask?
I can't repeat those on a family podcast.
Okay. Is that what this is?
Well, some kind of family, the family of the goat with
The weird
1,000
family, yeah.
the weird, the Addams family.
Matt, I did not see you as much as I usually do. You were doing so many things. What panels did you go to, and were you on
Oh,
any?
I was on a few, but my favorite was one. Do y'all know Alan Trump?
Yeah.
He gave this really terrific presentation with photographs of grimoires on celluloid. So, like, not that he's interested in what the grimoire is, he wants to show you how they made the prop. And he went through movie after movie showing a still from the movie, and then like, here was the Necronomicon they made for this, or here's this particular grimoire. Then he tossed out prizes to the audience, and
Really?
it was just a blast. It was an absolute blast.
And they
That
didn't
was
even have to email in for them like they do here.
right now. It's just, I even got a little, I don't know where it went. I got a little stuffed octopus. But so to me, that's the absolute best kind of panel. Here's a guy who loves the subject matter, and
Yeah.
then instead of trying to make it some kind of dry dissertation, he's showing like, here's the star with the book. And then, it was really a lot of fun. The panel that I was on that I thought was the best was the one about birds in horror.
Was Cisco
And
on that?
no, the person who we were really missing was Jeff Vandermeer.
Yeah.
Because he had COVID. So unfortunately he didn't show up, but it was a really interesting discussion. I thought it was a lot of fun for the audience too.
I enjoyed watching the panel on the top 10 Lovecraft stories you were on.
Yeah. The way that was organized, I thought we could have gotten into a much more juicy fist fight kind of environment. Instead, the guy kept everything very civil. It was fun, but I got to say the bird panel was just a blast.
So you were at a fight and the panel broke out?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
that's what I was hoping for, but yeah.
Could you say it was a hoot?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's a dad joke.
You can say it because you have probable cause.
Kelly
Man,
Kelly has a werewolf book coming out. He posted this the other day. Like and subscribe. And then I was not aware wolf. It's bad. You know, it's almost like he's a father and he's telling dad jokes on Facebook. So I'm sorry, Mark, you were going to say something.
No,
you weren't.
No,
Okay.
I was about to sort of laugh at Matt's comment there, but then I thought, nah.
Nadia, any other panels you want to talk about? You talked about the Kafka one.
Yeah, I mean, that was my favorite.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I was also on like the guest of honor panel, which is like always awkward, honestly. The ironic thing is that I actually did get to have really good conversations with Brandon O'Brien, who's the poet laureate. He gave me a lot of juicy tea on Worldcon drama.
Ooh, tell us.
No.
Yes. We want
Nadia's like, no.
Oh, come
But
on.
It was trying to decide. He was like, should I or should I not go to a Worldcon ever? And so it was really interesting to hear about all the different politics, which I feel like, as far as I know, Necronomicon doesn't have that kind of drama with it, you know?
They did in the past, but they stomped it down.
That's true.
It's a very good job that exists of keeping it out of the public eye, which Worldcon obviously does not. Because we all hear about the drama associated with Worldcon. So it was interesting conversations. And then I met Billy Martin, another guest of honor. Only on the very last day could we have like a one-on-one conversation.
Poppy Z Bright.
Right? Yeah. Yep. And that was really fabulous.
Would you mind telling me, because I guess I don't know, are they still writing? I thought
Yes, I believe so.
So I thought a long time ago he stopped using the name Poppy Z Bright and then stopped writing. I thought for a while, but that may have been many years ago. It'd be nice if he had come back to it, or I'm not sure what they prefer.
Yeah, I believe starting to write again. Maybe,
Good.
Not like a full capacity, but definitely I think wants to. And I think people want them to as well. So
right.
So let's get a little bit more awkward, Nadia, and talk about the guest of honor panel, because it's well deserved. I've always been a huge fan of yours as a person and as a writer, and so I'm glad that this.
Oh, like why was it awkward?
No, tell me about I'm going to basically embarrass you and talk about the panel. What'd you guys talk about?
I mean, it was kind of like random questions thrown out by the moderator about like our lives and work. So you would get down these, I think part of the issue that I personally was like, it didn't feel necessarily like a connected, seamless whole. You would get down into rabbit holes about certain people, but then it was like, how do you bring that? It's like, and now on this completely different subject, which I feel like is a little hard for an audience to follow. And I mean, for me personally, like, I don't know why I would go to something like that personally, because like, oh my gosh. I mean, it just feels like it's just kind of, I don't know, awkward. I felt, but I guess there's a desire for it.
Well, to the audience, if you have not read She Said Destroy, you should pick up a copy. Um, uh, Autumn Cthulhu, which has been a few years now, she wrote a story for me called "There Is a Bear in the Woods," and it's just absolutely incredible. And like I said, I've always found you to be a very kind person. I've been a fan since I've known you as a person, and certainly as a writer. So I'm glad that they did that. So
Thank you. No, it was very flattering and very nice. I just a little bit of imposter syndrome. I kept sort of flipping around my badge to be like, I'm not a guest, I'm nobody. Don't worry about it.
no, you're definitely somebody.
Now, do you typically write with a cat on your shoulder? I have to do this all the time, and it can be quite the impediment.
I am considering getting a sling so that I can be hands-free typing, because this is very hard, as you can imagine. I usually just have to hunt and peck with
I don't
one
have
hand.
to imagine it.
Yeah.
Neither does Mark.
The only reason I don't have one right now is because I shut the door. I could have as many as 3 or 4
I would not
at
be,
any given moment.
so
One of the many things that we learned about John in the recent deep background interview on my Patreon was that he is, in fact, a cat person. So
really.
he is.
Well, really?
Yeah, I
Really?
mean, I love my dogs. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I grew up with cats. When I was that was what my family had when I was growing up, and I think because they're easier to take care of in some ways, they go outside to go to the bathroom, that sort of thing. And yeah, and cats kind of, I mean, they don't respect your space, but when they invade it, I guess they're smaller, like when a dog
Yeah.
invades your space, it's like, oh my God. So I mean, I love my dogs dearly, but on some fundamental level, if you ask me, cat person, dog person, I would have to respond cat person.
Yeah. Ditto.
Yeah, same.
Ditto.
Yeah, Matt, did I ask you about panels? My memory is just going.
Oh yeah, the other panel I was on was kind of fun too. It was the Arkhamites, and that Paul DeFilippo was on there. I'm not going to remember all the names. Justin Woodman was there, the guy from the UK who's a scholar of the occult. He comes to every Necronomicon, and it was just about how Lovecraftiana changed in the 1970s and what happened there or who was writing them that still has influence that might be still reverberating 50 years later.
Yeah.
So I actually learned probably more than I shared. That's not kidding. I barely shared anything. I learned a lot.
John, Chaz says on the live chat, I'm reading House of Windows at the moment. I'll lose sleep reading tonight again. So
Good.
there you
Your loss of vitality makes me stronger.
this is what keeps him alive. He's sucking
Exactly.
energy out of
I'm
readers.
just all the books. That's all they were a scam to drain energy from my readers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Chaz. That's very sweet. I appreciate that.
Bill, did you talk about all the panels that you attended?
Well,
if
I
any?
really only got to a couple.
Sure.
Apart from the Leonora Carrington one, I got to a music and mythos panel. It's like a focus on heavy metal. I probably should have been on the panel, but anyway, it was a great panel. Lots of insights. Curtis was on that. I cannot recall the. I'm so bad with names, but yeah, it was a great panel. Makes me realize that if I ever want to be on a panel, I have to get a hearing aid, because hearing became a really big issue for me at the con, just because I didn't realize how loud it was going to be. But
Also, next time, they send out, if you don't get one, holler at me or somebody else. Necronomicon, they send out I guess a questionnaire and ask people if they want to be on panels and so forth. So you can definitely volunteer yourself. In fact, that is what they would like you to do, because they don't know who all is an expert on what, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is that I look at the panel selections, like the panel offerings, and I think I am not an expert enough on any of this. And so I just, I ended up on Kafka because I was like, this is the only one I know. The others, it's like, you mean, you could end up on a panel with somebody who's like, I've written 3 books on this subject. And you're like, I read 1 page.
Yeah, I was on
a few years ago, a few Necronomicons ago, I was on an Arthur Machen panel with Michael Dirda, and who's a lovely man. But the panel did become sort of Michael Dirda takes you through the works of Arthur Machen. And when somebody, I think it's a challenge when you do know that much to kind of let other people into the conversation. Especially if you're like, well, I don't really agree with that, or I don't think that's a fully informed opinion, or whatever. So
You can
it's
always just yell out, "Shut your whore mouth," Rollick, as you're wont to do.
Yeah, to Michael Dirda. That's what I would have
Yeah.
said. Shut your whore mouth, Michael Dirda. He would have liked that. He really would have appreciated that. Yeah.
Similarly, I was on a panel a few years ago with Michael Kelly and Peter Straub right next to me, and we were talking about editing. And I said a tiny bit, sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very tiny bit.
Exactly.
It's
Well,
Peter Straub. I don't want to. I want to listen to him. I don't want to talk to him.
In Peter's, it's odd in Peter because you're right that Peter loved to hold forth, but I always had this weird feeling with Peter that it was like he felt that like, okay, I want to give the people what they paid for or something like that. It was an impulse that was rooted in generosity.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I Every word that came out of his mouth, I enjoyed listening to. One of the funny things was near the end, he said something about a, a project he was going to ask Stephen King about, which they were friends, as everybody knows, I think. And he said something like, next time I'll just go directly to Stephen instead of going through all the other people. So that was kind of funny to hear.
Yeah, that he could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So did everybody comment on panels? Did I leave anybody out? Non-panel stuff that you guys did.
Yes.
Oh, Bridget, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't go to a lot of panels, but I went to one about Lovecraft or the weird in audio. And that was a very interesting panel talking about adapting Lovecraft to different media aside from reading it, obviously, but it was interesting because it didn't divert into the movies as we usually get into conversation about, how do we capture weird fiction on film, but it talked more about adapting it for audio and where there's kind of left and right limits of whether you're doing a true adaptation or you're doing more of an inspired by situation. And that was a very interesting conversation.
And I'm sure you especially enjoyed it because you've got a new podcast, right?
Womp womp. Yeah.
Womp, womp, womp.
The Weird Library.
The Weird
New
Library.
episodes coming soon. Stand by.
Yeah.
But I have a website. I've been doing a lot of admin stuff. But yeah, it was not that I'm looking to do specifically Lovecraft adaptations, but there were some good conversations on there, like how do you capture a weird thing with just audio, and how reading a story is different from hearing a story sometimes. So yeah, it was very, very good conversation.
Reading, I wasn't there, but reading is different than a audio drama, for example.
Yes, and H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society was there talking about that, and even for the work that they do when they do, one of their radio theaters, that how can they capture everything that's happening in the audio. But then also if are they doing a Lovecraft story, or are they doing something that's more, gives them more room to adapt and change and make things more for the times? How strict do they have to be to the original work? Yeah.
I'm very sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out.
Sure, I see how it is.
What's the new URL for the Weird Library? Is it weirdlibrary.com?
Yes, weirdlibrary.com.
Okay. And then your other website is, well, tell us. I know there's a dash in
In
there.
progress.
I thought you had a Dark Side of the Bridge where
I
you were
do,
selling
but
stuff.
I'm changing stuff, so I'm not
Oh,
advertising
okay.
that yet.
All right. Well,
But thank you.
yeah. Next time when it's ready, tell us.
Under reconstruction, I will tell you.
Reconstruction. Okay.
Okay, so Bridget, tell us this because he's more the layperson. When Mike was going around with you, because I know he's a horror fan,
Which Mike?
her husband.
Oh, okay.
That's just funny is hearing how he's a layperson. But
Well,
yes,
like he's a horror
yeah.
fan, but he's not so much into the Lovecrafty stuff. I was just
No,
wondering what
and he
kind of
doesn't
like.
read a lot in general. He's just not a avid reader. So
So,
reading weird fiction's not up his bag at all. No.
so what did he like? What did he drag you to stuff?
No, he did he enjoyed he enjoyed the panel I went to, but I think for him it was more just hanging out with everybody too, because we go to horror cons and it's about seeing the celebrities, or you go to some of the conventions that are more focused on artwork or filmmaking or special effects, you go to see those kind of things. But with Necronomicon, I think even more for somebody that's not, an expert on Lovecraft stuff, it was more about hanging out with everybody and just seeing the cool art. And I think he enjoyed the panel about audio stuff too, just because he sees, what I've been doing.
Non-panel stuff that people want to comment on. I basically, like I said, hung out in the dealer's room.
There was a guy who did a presentation Friday night, I think it was, and it was about a Japanese manga artist named, I think, Mizaki, but I'm probably screwing that up. And it was about this early adaptation of the Dunwich Horror that he did. And what was interesting really was that he said, look, this adaptation is terrible. It's awful. I'm going to take you through it. So although it's about 200 pages long, the adaptation, he had put up on his PowerPoint maybe like the 20 most important pages. So we got a sense of what the adaptation was like. But what was much more fascinating to me was that the artist who did this, I've never heard of, and I'm not an expert in manga or anime or anything, but I know Junji Ito, right, or Gao Tanabe, right, and this artist whom I've never heard of is like one of the gods of manga in Japan. When he died a few years ago, the emperor himself came to lay a wreath on his memorial that said something like, thank you, teacher, and
Wow.
and so you get this whole story about his biography, right? And you also get, this is how we adapt the Dunwich Horror to more of a Japanese folk context in the years right after the Second World War. Sort of small detail when they want things to seem, when he wanted things to seem really like characters are speaking in an eldritch language. All of the words were in English. It's just nonsense in English, but it's English language characters. So it's like, oh, what could they be saying in that other language? So it was an interesting kind of cultural flip-flop. But no, it was utterly fascinating. And I think this guy, whose name I am shamefully forgetting, might have worked with Gao Tanabe in bringing his stuff into English. I would actually, hang on, you know what? I still have my program guide here. Let me just see. Oh, Fallen Nature's Materialism. Here we go. So the guy's name is Shigeru Mizuki, and Zach Davison, who has translated the work of Gao Tanabe and others, was just a fantastic speaker and just told us how he learned how to speak Japanese living in Japan. He went to the bars and that sort of stuff. So his Japanese is really filthy because that's how he learned to speak it. And yeah, it was just vastly entertaining and really, really, really a good a good talk.
Speaking of artists, the eZine table was right across from Santiago Caruso's table, and anyone listening, excuse me, should Google him. He has some amazing Lovecraftian art. The guy is just talented as hell. And other
Yeah,
kind.
he did the covers for 2 of my early books, and
Did
so
he?
that was
Yeah.
that was one of my goals. Was I really wanted to meet him, and when he saw my name tag and realized, oh, come on, we're hugging, and I wish we'd had more time. I wish I would have liked to have had a meal with him. But I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this print from you, and he was like, no, I'm going to give it to you. And yeah, just a lovely guy and a fearsomely talented artist.
That describes it very well, and he's also a very humble, very nice person. We're going to have him on later in the year on the podcast.
Cool.
So,
Yeah. He shares my opinion of you, so I was like, that's awesome.
well, it's nice that you guys could bond over things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, what would you have to talk about?
I was like, what's it been like being across from Davis this whole weekend? And he was like, God.
He's like, it's not bad. Bridget keeps kicking him out of the dealer's room. Okay, so I'd like to ask you guys who there that you know or that you didn't know beforehand did you bump into, get to talk to, meet, that which this really is what it all boils down to for me. So let's talk about that. Who wants to go? Mark?
Well, many of you I had known for quite a long time, and having not been to many cons in the last 2 decades, it was all, like I had mentioned this before, it kind of felt like a homecoming, getting together with you and Alan and Bridget and Matt and John, everybody that I have either met in passing or only virtually. A highlight for me was meeting Jeff Thomas, because I've known Jeff since 1989 on as far as publishing his work and corresponding and being online. And I remember walking into the Joe Pulver panel that morning and seeing Jeff in person for the very first time. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Jeff.
That's awesome.
And when we actually started talking, it was like reliving old times that we'd never had. I friggin' love that. And there were many examples at NecronomiCON that I can't compare to any other convention. I went to, what was it, 2 years ago? I went to NeCon back in the 80s and 90s. I was a regular at NeCon, but it was a whole different animal. This felt like a whole different convention. And I met a bunch of people there that I had known virtually, like Tony Tremblay, Bracken McLeod, lots of guys. And this particular con, though, there's sort of an intangible feeling about it, but I mentioned this before, it felt like home. And
Yeah.
I can't say that even about like NeCon, which was a home con for many years. I credit this to the tribe, as we talked about. Y'all were just, every one of y'all that I got to know were the best, and I love that.
Well, I feel the same about you, Mark. Many years ago, when I was really young, I was a manager of a Brugger's Bagels, and my boss, the area manager of all the stores, said to me one time after I got in that position, he said, "Mike, be very careful who you hire." And I said, what do you mean? What do what do you mean by that? He goes, Mike, the kind of people that you hire are going to be the kind of people that you attract. And I found that over and over in life. Um, and I say that in relation to this, that from Neil's on down, that's the kind of people that are attracted to this convention, I feel. I went to, my wife and I and my son went to the Texas Frightmare convention with Bridget and her Mike a few months ago, and it was very fun, and it was awesome seeing Mike and Bridget again in person because I'm such good friends with them, and I love both of them. But as much as I enjoyed it, and Danielle and Logan enjoyed it, Necronomicon is just such a more relaxed feel. Wouldn't you say, Bridget?
Yes, it's just different. I mean, any of those conventions that you go to where there's, huge celebrity tables and photo ops and stuff, there's always going to be enormous lines and it's going to be crowded. Usually I just walk along the back of the celebrity alley and be like, there he is over there. I know. Yeah, I remember her from that thing. And I just avoid the lines most of the time because, yeah, it's very packed. But Necronomicon, yes, is very, very different. I mean, it is a niche, but it's very cool. It's
Yeah,
like
I saw a
family
lot
in
of
our family.
yeah, I saw a lot of famous actors at Frightmare from very far away.
Yes.
So
Yeah, it was only the 1 year, and it wasn't even this year. It was the year before that I paid for the photo op with John Carpenter because I was not gonna pass that up,
and he called you
and that
darling?
was worth it. But it wasn't like Necronomicon where I go up to like um somebody's table and I'm like, yeah, I've been friends with you on Facebook for forever, and they're like, yeah, I know you, and I was like, oh.
That's awesome.
I
Yeah, it's
hated. I'm
John
sorry. Go ahead.
Carpenter's
I'm
not gonna
sorry.
know me if I hey, I've been following you for
I did hate that I missed seeing a good many people like Billy Martin. I didn't even know Billy Martin was there until like the last day, and I knew Poppy when Poppy, going back to back in the 80s. I used to go to Athens. I was in I went to school at University of Georgia, and I lived in Athens for years, and Poppy lived in Athens way back when. So we got together in Athens a number of times, but I haven't seen now Billy. I haven't. I'm gonna say going on 40 years, and I really regretted not even realizing that Billy was there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have that there's so much to do.
Yeah, that's just it. That's
Yeah.
it. It was more than well at the opening ceremonies. The word was there's too much happening here to take it all in. So don't
Yeah.
even try. And I tried best I could, but I still feel like I missed out. But what I gained was far, far, far more.
Alan and Bill, you guys haven't talked in a while. Who did you bump into or meet for the first time, or what would you like to talk about along those lines?
I'll talk about the Patreon dinner. That's not been brought up yet. That was such
Oh,
a
yeah.
great experience. Just again, like everybody said, meeting people on Facebook, getting to see Jeremiah for the first time,
Yeah.
and then Dave, Tim. Me and Kevin have been working on some projects. It was great to sit with him and catch up.
Yeah, Tim Lone Gun gave me at the Patreon dinner, he gave me this really cool, I wish I had it within reach, Cthulhu looking idol, and he just said, thanks for all you do for the community and everything. And I was just blown away by, again, it's just the nicest people at this convention, that watch this show or on the Patreon, whatever. I love you guys. Anything else, Alan? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's just the Patreon dinner was that's just something great you do, and thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
Bill.
I got to echo what's said before. We kind of had like a situation where it's an embarrassment of riches. You know, there's just so much to take in and so many people to meet. And again, with my mea culpas here, but next time I will have a hearing aid when I go. I had to when I got there, I realized very, very early on that I was going to have a very serious problem with interacting with people. So you know, when I got to talk to people outside of the dealer's room, like one on one, real close, I could do it. But like you know, I went and I met John, introduced myself, but I could not hear a word he said. So I apologize about that, John. And same thing with Matt Bartlett.
You don't have to apologize for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just as well. It was really as, you know.
Okay, because you're half deaf like me, right?
Oh, I'm probably a bit more than half at this point. Yeah,
I'm
bad.
deaf in one ear. And,
Oh, it's
yeah.
It's,
And the problem with being deaf in one ear is in a quiet room like this virtually or whatever, you're fine talking to somebody else. But if you're at a restaurant or in any noisy place, it's very it all just kind of runs together and you can't pick out what people are saying. It's hard to do.
Yeah. So next time, I promise I will be more on the ball, more prepared for that sort of thing. But you know, a real highlight for me was I met a guy by the name of Chris Callie. He's sort of a cosmic horror super fan guy, and
Chris Callie
yeah,
from here in Texas, yeah.
Yeah, from here. He's up there in Dallas, I believe, and just talking and hanging out with him. And it was so funny because we had talked a bunch before and knew each other were going to be there, and we're sitting there talking, and he's like, "Wait a second, are you William?" and that was real funny because I didn't put William on my name tag because, again, I was afraid of like I have this phobia of people thinking that I'm rude or pretentious when I'm really just deaf, you know, and so I didn't put my name on my name.
Also, you didn't want them to think you were a fictional character.
That too.
From a Ray Bradbury novel.
So. There's that. Yes.
I hated not meeting Chris too because he's one of my 2 fans.
He is an awesome guy.
I want to wrap up in a few minutes, but Matt, do you have anything else you'd like to add? People you bumped into, anything at all?
Well,
you're always very good at summing these things up. And
well, nobody came up to me for my autograph, but anyway, the reason I missed the Patreon dinner is I have a med school classmate. I've known him for over 40 years now. He drove up from New York to come to NecronomiCON, so I was out with him and his partner for dinner. I'm not going to make that. I'm going to make arrangements ahead of time next time so that I don't miss that Patreon dinner because I really wanted to go because in 22 I was like slumped over from COVID. So it's like 2 years in a row now. I feel like I've missed it. It's something I really wanted to do.
It's such fun. And I got to give props to Pete Rollick, who is always, he always arranges all of that for me. I don't have to do a thing. So, but anyway, go on.
But if anyone else out there is listening, all I can say is, if you want to go, just go. You know, you can probably get a cheap Airbnb. You don't have to stay at one of the convention hotels, or, you know, if you got a Marriott, there's a Marriott across the street.
The lobby couches are very comfortable.
You don't even have to spend a lot of money like on special events like the prayer breakfast or the Eldritch Ball or any of these supplementary walking tours. Just get your basic pass and you get into all the panels, all the performances. It's great. So, you know, you want to see your favorite authors, and I got to tell you, they want to see you. You know, like Bridget said, it's the tribe.
John, anything else you want to say about the convention, or a sum up? Anything that
Well, I was kind of a last minute addition. I did not think I'd be able to go. I just didn't think I'd be able to swing it. And then Paul was like, "Hey, you can stay with me." So I felt like just this was not something I was planning on doing this summer, and it just was fortuitous that I was able to do it. And it was such a pleasure. It was just such a pleasure to get to see everybody and hang out with everybody. I really made more of an effort than I usually do to go to panels, to go to readings, to kind of take part in the life of the convention. And I didn't stay a huge amount of time in the dealer's room, for which my wallet is eternally grateful. But even going in there, hanging out with Bartlett, say, it was just it was really warm and it was really welcoming, and I just had a lot of wonderful interactions with other writers, with fans, with people that I've known, for a number of years now. Oh, hey, good to see you. So yeah, I definitely think that the vibe is very welcoming, is very warm. It's not and it's absolutely true. I just have to echo what everybody's saying. There is too much to see. There is too much to do. A lot of times for me, you sort of go to a convention and you're like, especially if it's a sort of a mixed genre convention, and you're like, oh, all right, a couple of horror things, I might go to see these. But I'll spend the rest of the time talking in the lobby. Here there were just there were things I look at now and I'm like, I didn't make the Kafka panel. I'm really sorry about that. I really wanted to make it to that panel. It didn't work out. And on the one hand, you feel sad, but on the other hand, you're like, yeah, but it was pretty cool that there was just all this stuff in one place. And I hope there will be again in a couple of years.
you said you were on the genre panel, or you
Yeah,
attended?
yeah, I was on the genre panel. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you know if they? I'm really sorry that I missed out on that one. Do you know if they recorded? I know they were going to record some.
They were going to try to, and I don't know if that worked out. Anya Martin was on the panel, and she wanted to record it for The Outer Dark. I don't know if that worked out or
Okay,
not.
I'll email Anya, and hopefully yes.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I'll let you guys get back to your day in a few minutes. But is there anything else anyone wants to say in closing, or maybe something we didn't cover or talk about?
Oh, the one thing I wanted to say was to shout out the Lovecraft Arts and Sciences bookstore. That was just incredible to walk
Yeah.
in there. I'd never been there before. My previous trips to NecronomiCON, but it was incredible to walk in there and be like, oh my god, this entire bookstore is us. Like,
It's pretty cool. Your mic's starting to give out. I think it's telling you that I've gone on too long. Yeah, now it's totally silent. Yeah, but the Lovecraft Arts and Sciences bookstore is just incredible. And a funny thing, I read the Charlie Parker books by John Connolly. A couple books back, Charlie Parker is in Providence, and he's in that, what is it, that little mall? I don't know what it's called. And he notices the Lovecraft Arts and Sciences bookstore, and he thinks something to himself that how important it is that little niche bookstores and things like that are there. That he's really glad knowing that it's there. Something to that effect. That's pretty cool. I told Niels that they made an appearance in a John Connolly book. So, anyone else before we depart?
Oh, yeah, one thing, just there is another convention coming up. If you missed this, you can still go to the HP Lovecraft Film Festival coming up in Portland in October.
Right.
So if you got to get your Lovecraft fix, and it's not even Lovecraft really. We call it that, but it's really just weird fiction, and
Yeah.
it's much more welcoming than just say you got to be this one specific kind of geek.
Yeah. I actually should be going to that next year. not this year, but I'm going to try, and on the off years of Necronomicon, I was talking to Gwen and go to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in Portland those years. So if you're listening and you're like, this sounds so great, but it's only every 2 years, go to the film festival in the off years. They're great, and Gwen and Brian do a hell of a job as well, and it really is a labor of love. If I often think if Niels stopped doing this, if Gwen and Brian stopped doing this, I'd feel this incredible loss, because that's how we all get together every year or 2 or 3. And I'm really grateful to them for doing it. Anyone else before we go?
It's a shame Pete's not here because we spent a lot of time with
Yeah.
Pete. That was the first time I've met Pete in person before, and he'd have some stories to tell.
Oh,
We
gosh,
were on a
him.
couple of panels. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
we'll
so
get him next
friendly
week
and
to tell some
helpful
stories.
and all that. He wheels and deals, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He
brought-
said he had like 4 proposals for projects coming up and got 5. So yeah, we need to hear from Pete.
Oh yeah, we were having a breakfast in the cafe, and he's like, "Well, I got to go. I got to talk to an editor about, doing this anthology or something like that."
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have him tell those stories next time. He's on the long weekend with his family, so which is good. I'm so grateful to have seen all of you there and spent time with you. I love each and every one of you. I'm in regards to Bill, who I've known for a long time, but now I feel like I really know you. I got to spend a lot of time with you, and
That's
so
loving, like, punching you in the shoulder in a manly kind of way, sort of love.
exactly. Anyone else want to say anything else? John, Alan?
No. Don't schedule a biometric screening 2 days after you get back from NecronomiCon. It wasn't pretty.
I need to write that down.
I can't follow that up.
All right, everyone. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Nadia, I really wanted you to do this today, and I'm glad you did because I got to see you for 3 minutes at Necronomicon. It just worked out that way. So, yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next time. By the way, I'm doing an interview with Sean Hamill this time tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. So, yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and hopefully everyone watching that didn't make it will be at the next Necronomicon. So, have a good night.
Good
Take
night,
care,
everybody.